Jerk Malone stared at the control panel of the Starship Diplomat's Veil, wishing there were a panic button labeled in neon red that he could smash with all his authority. Instead, the panel offered only blinking lights and a holographic etiquette guide that insisted, with terrifying confidence, that interstellar diplomacy required perfect posture and a charming smile that conveys absolute sincerity. He tried smiling, and immediately his teeth reflected in the polished chrome floor, giving him the unsettling impression that he looked like a human disco ball trying to negotiate peace with aliens. Around him, dignitaries of the Aranthian Empire hovered in levitation pods, their translucent robes shimmering faintly with anti-gravity pulses, and their eyes flickered like liquid mercury. Somewhere, a translator drone hummed cheerfully and spat out polite alien murmurs in his direction, which he interpreted only as vague insults. Then Lyria entered. She glided across the atrium with the grace of someone who had never once tripped in her life, which was infuriating because Jerk had already tripped 3 times that morning. Once on the ceremonial hoverstep, once on a wayward drone cable, and once on the ambassador's left foot, which had provoked a quiet growl that sounded almost like laughter. Lyria looked human at first glance, but her long ears curved elegantly upward like twin crescents of moonlight, twitching occasionally when she was amused. Her silver eyes caught the light in a way that made him suspect she could see the thoughts he desperately hoped were private, and when she smiled at him, a little smirk tugged at the corner of her lips as if she already knew the chaos he was about to cause. "Are you sure this is the right dress code?" Jerk whispered to her, his voice cracking. "I mean, I've read the manual, but I didn't see anything about levitating robes." Lyria arched an eyebrow and let out a soft, musical laugh. "You mean the manual that suggested you bow at the exact angle of 37.4 degrees while reciting a compliment about my ears. I think we both know you can't even bow without hitting a drone." He winced as a small, spherical security bot rolled past and beeped disapprovingly at him. "It's not my fault the bot is judgmental. I was born clumsy." "I'm sure the Empire appreciates your honesty," she said, circling him with effortless precision, her long ears twitching like radar dishes scanning for laughter. "Although I suspect your version of diplomacy is mostly accidental slapstick." Jerk tried to frown, but somehow it came out as a grimace that made him look like he was constipated in zero gravity. Lyria laughed again, and for a moment he forgot that he was supposed to be the savior of interstellar peace. He realized that maybe saving the galaxy could wait, at least until he survived the ceremony without breaking anything or anyone. When the ceremony began, holographic flowers floated in orbit above the atrium, occasionally colliding and dissolving into glittering sparks that smelled faintly of almonds. The Empire's ambassador, a tall figure with an iridescent spine-like crest, drifted forward and inspected Jerk with piercing eyes. "The human is functional," the translator drone said in a tone that sounded suspiciously like barely competent. Jerk bowed, almost hitting the ceiling, and muttered a quick apology under his breath. Lyria leaned close, her voice a teasing whisper. "You're really living up to expectations, soldier. They'll be talking about your acrobatics for centuries." The vows were a disaster. Jerk tried to remember the carefully memorized lines, but when he reached, "I pledge to honor and protect you across the stars," he sneezed mid-word, launching a tiny glitter drone into the nearest wall. Lyria stifled a laugh so well that he thought she might have a second set of ears just for snickering. The dignitaries shifted uncomfortably, but the translator drone translated the sneeze as some kind of charming ritual custom, and no one exploded into interstellar war immediately, which he counted as a small victory. Afterward, they retreated to their quarters, a cabin the size of a small asteroid, with windows that showed the stars streaking past like liquid silver. Jerk collapsed onto the bed, muttering about how he had survived without breaking any treaties or limbs. Lyria perched on the edge of the bed, her long ears twitching again, and said, "You know, You're lucky I'm fascinated by human foolishness. Otherwise, I might have reported you as a galactic hazard. Is this supposed to be romantic? He asked, unsure whether she was teasing or subtly threatening him with interstellar homicide. Romance is subjective, she said, tilting her head. I find humor and chaos highly attractive. You soldier are a perfect mix. Jerk blinked. Somehow, in the middle of the galaxy, wedged between a wedding he barely survived and a woman who could probably crush him with a flick of her long ears, he felt a curious warmth. He laughed nervously, which made a nearby robotic tea server spill its contents into a perfectly safe, self-cleaning puddle. Lyria reached over and pressed a finger to his lips, smiling that same teasing smirk. Don't worry. I'm not here to eat you, yet. The night stretched on, the stars outside streaking faster and faster, as if the universe itself was curious about this unlikely union. Jerk tried to talk about human culture, accidentally insulting at least 3 Aranthian customs, and Lyria responded with witty quips that made him snort so loudly he almost knocked over a grav lamp. Somewhere in the ship, a maintenance droid hummed a happy tune, clearly judging their domestic incompetence. By the time the first artificial dawn flickered across the cabin, Jerk realized 2 things. 1, he had married someone far more clever and dangerous than he could have anticipated. And 2, he was hopelessly, foolishly, completely fascinated by her. Lyria's long ears twitched as she caught his gaze, and for the first time, the teasing in her eyes softened into something warmer. She whispered almost conspiratorially, "Tomorrow, soldier, we begin the real work, and yes, it may involve explosions." Jerk laughed again, wondering if the galaxy would ever forgive him or survive him. The first step toward peace was complete. The real chaos was just beginning. Jerk woke to the soft hum of the starship's engines vibrating through the floor, which felt more like a gentle purr than a mechanical roar. He blinked at the soft blue glow of the cabin, half expecting Lyria's long ears to be twitching in judgment over some human blunder he had committed in his sleep. As always, she was already awake, balancing on the edge of the gravbed like a dancer who had never met gravity she couldn't tease. "You know, sleeping horizontally is optional," she said, eyes gleaming silver in the low light. "I prefer to levitate while pondering the fragility of human egos." Jerk groaned and rolled onto his side, knocking a small floating mug into the corner. "Optional, huh? And here I thought I was getting the deluxe sleep treatment. Apparently, I signed up for a master class in superiority." "Master class is exactly what this is," she said, tipping forward so her long ears twitched perilously close to the ceiling panel. "And you're my favorite apprentice, mostly because you're hopelessly entertaining." The day began with laughter, barely suppressing the underlying tension of their mission. Jerk's first assignment was routine: accompany Lyria to the research labs to test the peace enhancement protocols, which were euphemistically described in the manual as methods of ensuring compliance with interstellar treaties via voluntary superiority. Lyria insisted on calling it morning experiments, as if she were a cheerful science teacher and he were a mildly clueless student prone to catastrophic mistakes. In the lab, gadgets hovered midair like obedient pets. Lyria waved a hand, and a toaster-sized drone zipped around, firing harmless beams of energy that left tiny sparks dancing like fireflies. "I call this the Kitchenocalypse prototype," she said with mock pride. "It will make toast, or launch it across the room in a spectacular fashion. Either way, breakfast will never be boring." Jerk held up a clipboard, squinting at the glowing readouts. "And this is necessary for peace somehow." She twirled in zero gravity, her long ears tracing perfect arcs. "Of course. If the galaxy is going to trust us, it's crucial that the inhabitants of every planet know I can simultaneously make toast and obliterate an invading fleet. It's a delicate balance." By mid-morning, he was already exhausted. Lyria, of course, was energetic enough to power the entire ship through 3 hyperspace jumps without breaking a sweat. You humans get tired too easily, she said, adjusting a miniature grav field around his wrist that had him floating in place like a caught balloon. It's adorable. Adorable, huh? That's the word I want on my tombstone if I die from exhaustion while protecting the galaxy, he muttered. Lyria laughed, and the sound made the air shimmer faintly. Then she poked a finger at a control panel, triggering a harmless energy pulse that made Jarek jump so hard he accidentally slammed into a wall with a thunk that would have echoed across 3 decks in a less technologically forgiving ship. Clumsy is charming, she said brightly. Also, a warning. You're teaching me human sarcasm, which could destabilize entire star systems. They spent hours in the lab, testing devices that seemed absurd on the surface, but had subtle, dangerous applications. Every time Jarek tried to add a suggestion, Lyria countered with humor, wit, or an unexpected calculation that made his ideas seem laughably primitive. When he finally caught a stray laser beam and flailed like a panicked fish, she clapped her hands and said, "Bravo! That's exactly the reaction we want: fear, excitement, and a touch of chaos." Lunch was an adventure. The replicator accidentally produced a sentient sandwich that demanded to be called Sir Crustington before it could be eaten. Lyria entertained it with witty banter while Jarek ate a neatly levitating bowl of noodles that constantly tried to escape his fork. "I told you," she said between bites. "Galactic peace is best practiced with a sense of humor and a little culinary chaos." Afterward, they were called to the command deck, where reports of a minor skirmish near a neighboring colony demanded their attention. Jarek expected tension and strategy discussions. Instead, Lyria immediately started improvising a holographic display that showed the entire conflict in cartoonish stick figures, complete with tiny speech bubbles that said things like, "You shall not pass unless you bring cookies." Jarek stared mouth open. "Is this professional?" "Professional enough to prevent casualties," she replied, her long ears flicking in amusement. "Besides, humor reduces stress. Stress is dangerous. Happy aliens are less likely to blow things up." Despite the jokes, the skirmish ended in their favor, thanks mostly to Lyria's remarkable instincts and surprisingly advanced manipulations of energy fields. Jarek had to admit, grudgingly, that her powers were already far beyond what the manual suggested. The lines between his human expectations and her alien capabilities blurred further each hour. He laughed to hide the nagging fear in the pit of his stomach. The woman he had married to secure peace was evolving into something he couldn't fully control. That evening, they returned to their quarters. Jarek tried to relax with a human novel, only to have Lyria hover over him, reading along, making sarcastic comments that turned every dramatic plot twist into absurd comedy. "And of course the butler's secret identity is a toaster. Very original," she said, ear twitching. He scowled at her teasing. "I thought this was serious literature." "Serious literature is boring," she replied, "and boring literature does nothing for peace. Trust me, soldier, chaos and humor keep the brain flexible." They ended the day with a quiet moment, Lyria floating lazily above him, her long ears tracing patterns in the air that left faint shimmering trails. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we start the real work. And yes, that will include experiments you might find explosive." Jarek shivered and laughed at the same time. Somehow, in a galaxy teetering on the edge of war, humor and danger had become inseparable companions. He realized that peace, love, and chaos were now tangled together in ways he couldn't untangle, and that he was completely, hopelessly, committed to the adventure. As the stars streaked past the cabin windows, he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with a mixture of terror and laughter. And maybe, just maybe, he would survive long enough to understand the woman he had married, the weapon he was unknowingly helping create, and the absurd, beautiful chaos of life between the stars. The war room buzzed with holographic displays and faint sparks of overworked energy conduits, and Jarek Malone felt an odd mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration as he glanced at the tactical maps. The galaxy had not blown up yet, which was a mild improvement over his earlier predictions. Lyria floated nearby, arms crossed but grinning, her long ears twitching like twin radars scanning for mischief. "You look tense, soldier," she said. "Is this your serious face, or are you about to spill coffee on something important again?" Jerk waved a hand dismissively, almost tipping over a hovering tea orb. "I swear, every time I think I've got a handle on diplomacy, some minor alien faction decides it's a good day for mischief." "Minor faction, major hilarity," she corrected, spinning lazily in zero gravity. "We're lucky they haven't tried sending an entire armada of sentient muffins at us yet." He blinked. "Sentient muffins, that's not even a metaphor, is it?" "You have no idea," Lyria said with a wink, and he realized that she might actually know more about interstellar culinary warfare than most generals. The skirmish reports had come in. The rogue Aranthians, offended by the sudden peace treaty, had attempted to sabotage multiple colonies. Lyria, now fully accustomed to her enhanced abilities, had neutralized every threat with terrifying precision and a kind of gleeful theatricality. Laser pulses traced arcs through the sky like fireworks, and every so often she quipped something absurd. "I told you, humans, never underestimate a girl with long ears and a caffeine surplus." Jerk, standing behind her, marveled at how far they had come. He had married this alien woman to secure peace, and somehow, in the process, he had learned more about himself than he ever expected. He was no longer the clumsy soldier tripping over hover steps. He had become a strategist, a negotiator, and a partner in a war against chaos that was now half humorous and entirely terrifying. They received a transmission from the Planetary Council. "Your intervention," the lead diplomat said, "has prevented widespread destruction. You are unexpectedly competent." Jerk muttered under his breath. "Unexpectedly is the operative word. We've mostly been lucky and sarcastic." Lyria's ears twitched. "Sarcasm counts as a tactical weapon, don't forget that." With the immediate threat neutralized, they turned their attention to the colonies. Lyria hovered above a small settlement, demonstrating the enhanced energy shield she had modified personally. Children waved at her, mistaking the glowing patterns for an alien light show. She laughed and waved back, whispering, "If they survive my cooking experiments, they deserve some happiness." Jerk couldn't help but laugh. Humor had become their secret weapon, just as much as her engineered powers. The galaxy was safer not only because of Lyria's abilities, but because she reminded everyone, including him, that laughter could diffuse tension in ways diplomacy could not. Later in their quarters, Jerk attempted to relax while Lyria tinkered with another harmless device, a compact sphere that occasionally emitted holographic butterflies. "You're working on another weapon?" he asked, eyeing it warily. She smirked. "Peacekeeping requires creativity, and also boredom is dangerous. Remember the muffin incident." "Don't remind me," Jerk said, shivering with a mixture of fear and amusement. She floated closer, her long ears brushing against his shoulder as she leaned inconspiratorially. "I've been thinking, soldier. You married me to secure peace, and now you've become surprisingly human in ways I didn't expect. I think you might be the only one who could survive being married to me." Jerk swallowed nervously. "And I thought I married you to save the galaxy. Apparently, I also signed up for ongoing chaos, sarcasm, and sentient kitchen appliances." "That's the bonus package," Lyria said, tapping his nose lightly. "Congratulations, soldier. You've been promoted to permanent chaos coordinator. Benefits include long ears, unpredictable humor, and the occasional mild panic." Jerk laughed, realizing that he had grown. He was no longer just a soldier following orders. He was a man who had learned to navigate humor in the midst of danger, to find trust in unexpected alliances, and to love someone powerful and unpredictable without losing himself. He looked at Lyria, seeing not just the weapon she had become, but the partner who had challenged him to grow, to laugh, and to survive the absurdity of the galaxy together. Their final act of diplomacy involved a gala aboard the Diplomat's Veil. Alien dignitaries marveled as Lyria and Jerk executed synchronized zero-gravity maneuvers, dodging holographic fireworks while simultaneously demonstrating energy shields and miniature drone maneuvers. When a diplomat accidentally floated into the punch fountain, Lyria quipped, "First time at a zero-G party. Don't worry, it happens to the best of us." Jerk snorted and muttered, "Somehow, this is what peace looks like now." As the festivities wound down, the stars outside the ship stretched in long streaks, reflecting the journeys they had survived together. Lyria's ears twitched gently as she leaned against Jerk, her silver eyes soft with amusement and warmth. "We did it, soldier. The galaxy is mostly intact." Jerk smiled. "Mostly intact, right, and we survived somehow." "Barely," she teased. "But surviving with humor is far more impressive than surviving without it." He laughed again, the sound echoing softly through the cabin, mingling with hers. He realized that he had not only saved colonies, prevented war, and navigated the chaos of marriage to a living weapon. He had discovered something far more profound. Peace was possible, but only when tempered with laughter, trust, and the willingness to embrace chaos without losing yourself. As they drifted together, surrounded by the soft hum of the ship and the quiet glimmer of distant stars, Jerk understood the full arc of his journey. He had married for peace, transformed the woman he loved into a weapon, and yet, through every misstep, explosion, and sarcastic quip, he had also been transformed. The galaxy remained unpredictable, full of danger and absurdity, but he was no longer the soldier who had stumbled through a wedding ceremony in zero gravity. He was a man who could face chaos with a grin, laughter as armor, and a partner who made the impossible feel like home. Lyria pressed a long-eared finger against his lips. "Promise me